I'm Diana, 32 years old, and I never dreamed my family would betray me twice. After 5 years of silence, they showed up at my doorstep with suitcases, acting like my house belonged to them. My father locked eyes with me and said words that still cut deep. "You don't even have a family. We're taking this house." I didn't yell or argue. I quietly grabbed my phone and dialed 911. If you're watching this video, let me know where you're from in the comments and hit subscribe to follow my journey of overcoming betrayal from those who should have loved me most. I grew up in suburban Pennsylvania, where my family looked flawless to outsiders. My dad, Richard, was a bank manager, always in sharp suits, his briefcase practically part of him. My mom, Diane, worked long nursing shifts but kept our home pristine. My older brother, Brian, 3 years older, was the family's pride and joy. We lived in a modest 3-bedroom house with a small backyard, just a typical American family getting by. But underneath that perfect image, tangled dynamics shaped my entire life. From early on, I sensed the unfairness. Brian's average grades were celebrated, while my straight A's were taken for granted. When he got into state university with a partial scholarship, my parents threw a huge party and bought him a new car, draining their savings to ease his debt. For me, I was told in freshman year to work part-time to fund college. By 16, I juggled school and 20 hours a week at a diner, flipping burgers to save every dime. Despite my grades and extracurriculars, no one spoke of top schools for me. The unspoken truth: Brian was the priority. I was an afterthought. One person saw me truly: my grandmother, Margaret, my mom's mother. She lived an hour away in a charming cottage with a garden that felt magical to me as a kid. Every summer, I spent 3 weeks with her while Brian went to sports camps my parents funded. Those weeks were my haven. "Diana," she'd say, showing me how to plant tomatoes, "no one else decides your worth. You do." Her worn hands guided mine in the dirt. "Never rely on anyone for a home. Build your own." Grandma Margaret raised 3 kids alone after my grandfather died when my mom was 12. A seamstress, she put them through some college. Her resilience and independence lit my path when home felt oppressive. As college neared, my parents' pressure grew intense. My mom insisted I become a nurse like her. "It's stable, Diana. You'll always have work," she said, brushing off my lack of interest in medicine. My dad nodded. "Creative careers are for those with family wealth to fall back on." But I discovered graphic design in my junior year. My art teacher, Miss Winters, saw my talent for composition and introduced me to design software. I was hooked, staying late to create projects and even winning a regional design award. My parents? They dismissed it as a hobby, not a career. Tensions hit a breaking point my senior year when college applications were due. I applied to a local community college with a solid design program and affordable state schools for art. When acceptances rolled in, my parents refused to help unless I picked nursing or business. "We're not throwing money at an art degree," my dad said sternly at dinner after my acceptances arrived. "Pay for it yourself if you want to wreck your future." I looked to my mom for support, but she stared at her plate. Brian, home from college, smirked. "Listen to Dad, Diana. Not everyone's built for a real career." I cried myself to sleep that night. But by morning, I'd made my choice. I'd attend community college, work full-time, and chase my design degree no matter what. At breakfast, I told them. My dad shrugged. "Your life, your mistake." I graduated high school with honors and moved into a tiny apartment with 2 roommates while attending community college. I worked nearly 40 hours a week at a coffee shop and a mall retail job, keeping a 3.8 GPA in my design classes. I visited Grandma Margaret when I could, her belief in me pushing me forward. After 2 years, I transferred to a state university to finish my graphic design degree. By then, I barely spoke to my parents. Holiday visits were tense. My dad quizzed me on my earning potential, and my mom slipped me $20 bills, whispering, "In case you need to eat." Brian graduated and landed a job at a financial firm, following Dad's footsteps. Family gatherings turned into a platform to flaunt his achievements, quietly pointing out my perceived failures. My mom would beam. "Brian just got a promotion and he's buying a condo downtown." The unspoken comparison to me lingered like a heavy fog. At 22, I graduated with my bachelor's degree, having lived away from home for 4 years. I walked the stage alone. My parents chose a conference for Brian's job over my ceremony. Grandma Margaret, leaning on her walker due to arthritis, was my only family there. Her proud smile as I crossed the stage meant more than any absent relative. With my degree in hand, I decided to move to Philadelphia for better job prospects. The design scene was thriving, and I landed an internship with potential for full-time work. The night before I left, I ate pie with Grandma Margaret on her porch. "I'm scared," I confessed. "What if they're right, and I fail?" She squeezed my hand, her blue eyes sharp at 82. "Diana, the only failure is chasing someone else's dream. Follow your heart. I'll always be your safe haven." Her words fueled me as I packed my car the next morning, determined to succeed on my terms, even if my family doubted me. My first 2 years in Philadelphia were tough but fulfilling. I moved from my internship to a junior designer role at a small marketing agency. The pay was small, but I built a portfolio and industry connections. I shared a 2-bedroom apartment in a rough neighborhood with Jessica, a teacher I met online. We became close, making our place homey with thrift store treasures and DIY projects. I called Grandma Margaret weekly and visited when I could. My parents? We were down to forced birthday calls and awkward Thanksgiving visits. Brian got another promotion and bought that downtown condo. My mom never missed a chance to bring it up. 5 years ago, disaster struck. The recession hit, and my agency lost major clients in just 2 months. One Monday, I arrived to locked doors and a bankruptcy notice. I was jobless overnight. I jumped into freelancing, contacting old clients and applying for every design job I could find. But budgets were tight, and freelancers were cut first. My small savings vanished fast on rent and groceries. Jessica helped with utilities and shared her leftovers, but she wasn't rich either. After 3 months of spotty work and piling bills, I got an eviction notice. I'd paid partial rent for 2 months, but the landlord was done. Jessica was moving in with her boyfriend soon, and I couldn't cover rent alone. Panic hit. I was weeks from homelessness. Desperate, I swallowed my pride and called my parents. My mom answered after 4 rings, distracted. "Hello. Mom, it's Diana," I said, voice shaking. "I need help." A pause. I heard her call. "Richard, it's Diana." I explained calmly, asking to borrow 1 month's rent while I job hunted, promising to repay with interest. Silence stretched painfully. Then my dad's voice cold. "Diana, we warned you. This unstable career path led you exactly where we said it would." "Dad, please," I whispered, tears falling. "I just need help to get back on my feet. I have interviews, but I need a place to live." "We're paying for Brian's MBA," my mom cut in. "We don't have extra funds." I knew it was a lie. They always found money for Brian, just not for me. "You chose to ignore our advice," my dad added. "Maybe this will teach you to make smarter choices." The call ended with no help offered, not even a temporary place to stay. I sat on my bedroom floor, surrounded by half-packed boxes, sobbing until I could hardly breathe. I called Grandma Margaret that night, but there was no answer. Her neighbor told me the next day she was in the hospital with pneumonia. I ached to visit her, but I had no money for the trip or a place to store my things. 2 weeks later, I was evicted. Jessica helped me cram my essentials, design gear, clothes, a few keepsakes, into my 12-year-old Honda Civic. The rest went into a storage unit, paid with my last $100. With nowhere else to go, I drove to my parents' house. It was a rainy October evening. Through their window, I saw them watching TV in their cozy living room. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, summoning courage before ringing their doorbell. My dad answered, his face shifting from surprise to disapproval as he saw my messy appearance and desperate eyes. "Diana, what are you doing here?" "Dad, I lost my apartment," I pleaded, standing in the rain. "I just need a place to stay for a few weeks until I find work and save up. Please." He glanced at my car, packed with my belongings, and frowned. This is what happens with artistic careers. Instability. "Richard, who's there?" My mom appeared behind him, her face hardening when she saw me. "Our daughter's homeless," my dad said, his voice dripping with scorn. "I'm not homeless," I said, my voice cracking. I just need my family right now. My dad crossed his arms. You picked your path, Diana. You ignored our advice. Now own the consequences. We're hosting the neighborhood association tomorrow, my mom added. It's not a good time. I stood there, rain soaking me, stunned. You're turning away your own daughter? You made it clear you don't need our guidance, my dad said coldly. You can't reject us and expect help when your choices fail you. He shut the door. I lingered on the porch, rain drenching my jacket, hoping they'd reconsider. They didn't. I drove to a Walmart parking lot and slept in my reclined driver's seat, with just $25 left. I texted Brian, hoping for help, but he ignored me. For 2 weeks, I lived in my car, showering at a gym where I had a membership, and using library computers to hunt for jobs and apartments. I kept calling my parents, leaving desperate voicemails. No response. One night, I drove by their house and saw Brian's car. They were all together, without me. It was my lowest moment. Abandoned, homeless, and alone. Rejected by those meant to love me most, just for choosing my own path. One freezing November morning, I sat in a coffee shop, sipping tea to use their Wi-Fi. I'd been there hours, searching for design gigs and cheap housing. My clothes, stuffed in garbage bags, were wrinkled, and despite gym showers, I looked rough. I was glued to my laptop when a voice said, Diana? Diana Wilson? I looked up to see Eleanor Garcia, a former coworker from the agency. She wore a sharp peacoat, holding a to-go coffee, looking like the success I wasn't. Eleanor, hi, I mumbled, embarrassed by my appearance. I thought it was you. I tried reaching you, but the agency emails shut down, she said, sitting across from me, kindly ignoring my disheveled state. How are you? Got a new job? I thought about lying but was too tired. Not really. Freelancing's been slow. I'm between places. Her face turned serious. Between places like housing? I nodded, tears welling up from shame. It's been tough. She leaned in, voice soft. Diana, are you living in your car? Her blunt question broke me. I nodded, tears falling. Eleanor slid her chair closer, touching my arm. Why didn't you tell us? The team's been checking in since the agency closed. I didn't want anyone to know I was failing, I admitted. Everyone else seemed fine. She shook her head. We all struggled. I was jobless for 6 weeks. She paused, eyeing me. When did you last eat a real meal? I couldn't recall. I'd been living on granola bars and cheap fast food. Come on, she said, standing. Pack up. You're coming with me. Before I could argue, she helped me grab my laptop and bag. She led me to her car, telling me to leave mine in the lot for now. 30 minutes later, I was in her warm apartment, eating sandwiches and soup she made. After eating, Eleanor led me to her spare bedroom. It's simple, but it's got a Real bed, and it's yours as long as you need, she said, setting fresh towels on the dresser. Her kindness overwhelmed me. Eleanor, I can't take this. We were just co-workers. We were a team, she said firmly. Now we're friends. That's what friends do. She sat on the bed's edge. Also, I might have a job lead for you. She shared that her boyfriend, Michael, ran a small web development studio needing help with graphics and interface design. The pay wasn't great, but it was steady. No promises, she warned, but I'll talk to him tonight. For now, shower, sleep, and we'll sort this out together. The next morning, I met Michael with Eleanor. His studio was small but growing. After reviewing my portfolio, he offered me an entry-level job on the spot. It was a step back, but it meant a regular paycheck. I said yes instantly. That afternoon, Eleanor helped me grab my car and the few items I'd been living with. As we set up the spare room, my phone rang with an unknown number. Is this Diana Wilson? A voice asked. Yes, it's me. I'm Nancy Holden, your grandmother's neighbor. I've been trying to reach you. Her condition's worse. Doctors aren't hopeful. My heart dropped. In my chaos, I hadn't checked on Grandma Margaret enough. I'd left messages with Nancy, but we kept missing each other. She's asking for you, Nancy said. Come if you can. I told Eleanor, who insisted on driving me the 3 hours to Grandma's town. We're going now, she said, calling Michael to reschedule a meeting. We reached the hospital after 9 p.m. Grandma Margaret looked frail in her bed, hooked to oxygen and monitors. Her eyes brightened when she saw me, and she reached out weakly. "My Diana," she whispered. "I knew you'd come." I stayed all night, holding her hand, sharing news of my new job. I spared her the pain of my homelessness and family's rejection, focusing on hope. "Thanks to Eleanor," I said. She murmured, "You always make your own way." In the early hours, she asked me to get a box from her purse, brought by Nancy. Inside were a key and a document. "My will," she said softly. "The house is yours. Always was." I protested, insisting she'd recover, but she shook her head. "Listen," she said, her voice firm despite her frailty. "You've got the spirit, the strength. Brian has your parents. You need roots." 2 days later, Grandma Margaret passed peacefully, her hand in mine. Grief hit hard, but I handled her funeral details. My parents showed up, looking somber but barely involved. At the will reading, their mood shifted. Grandma left me her cottage and savings, giving my mom and Brian only small keepsakes. My dad's face turned stormy. My mom cried. "Mother always favored you," she snapped after the lawyer left. "Though you rarely visited lately." I didn't explain that money, not love, kept me away. I thanked the lawyer, took the keys, and started moving into my unexpected home. The cottage needed work. Its decor and appliances screamed Grandma's 85 years. Still, it was mine, untouchable. Eleanor helped me settle in, bringing essentials and cleaning with me. "It's got strong bones," she said, scrubbing the kitchen, "and great light for a home office." For the first time in months, I slept feeling safe, hopeful. In Grandma's overgrown but lovely garden, I heard her voice. "You build your own shelter, Diana. You always could." With a home and a remote job, I started rebuilding. I turned the cottage's front room into an office, buying a desk and design gear. Michael liked my work, gradually giving me more tasks and better pay as I proved myself. The cottage became my passion. I updated one room at a time, painting and swapping fixtures while keeping Grandma's charm. Her garden, once her pride, became my weekend escape. I knew nothing about plants at first, but with books and videos, I revived the wild beds. Moving to a small town after city life took some getting used to. At first, I kept to myself, still hurting from my family's rejection and hesitant to trust new people. But small towns pull you in, like it or not. It began with Mrs. Jenkins, my neighbor, who brought a casserole to welcome me, even though she'd known me as Grandma Margaret's granddaughter for years. Then Tom at the hardware store started saving vintage doorknobs he thought would suit my cottage. Soon, I was waving and chatting with folks on my way to the post office or grocery store. 6 months in, I made my first real friend in town. I loved the local bookstore for its design books and great coffee. The owner, Patrick Lewis, was my age and had taken over the shop from his uncle a year before I arrived. "You'll wear out that design book," he teased one day as I bought another coffee, flipping through the same interior design book. "Why not buy it?" "Renovating on a budget," I said with a grin. "I'm fixing up the cottage slowly." The next day, the book was gift-wrapped behind the counter with a note. "Renovation fee. Your coffee tips improved our menu. Patrick." We bonded over books and coffee, then shared meals. Patrick was easy to talk to, free of the judgment my family dished out. When I shared my story of how I ended up here, he listened quietly. "Your parents sound tough," he said when I finished. "Their loss." As my design skills and clients grew, I took a leap. I used my savings to start Elevation Designs, a studio focused on branding for small businesses. Working with Michael showed me local shops needed affordable visual identity help. I began with a website and business cards, then pitched to local stores and restaurants. Patrick was my first client, needing a new bookstore logo and signs. Word spread fast. Within a year, I had enough clients to leave Michael's studio, though we kept collaborating, referring clients to each other. My business grew, and so did my love for the cottage. I replaced the old roof, updated the creaky heating, and modernized the kitchen, keeping Grandma Margaret's beloved cabinets. The property's value rose, but more than that, it became a home that honored her and reflected me. The garden thrived as I learned to care for it. I added a patio for outdoor workdays and a fire pit for relaxing evenings. Patrick often joined me, bringing books and listening to my project ideas. By the 5th anniversary of Grandma Margaret's passing, my life had changed completely. Elevation Designs had 3 employees, working from my converted garage. I joined the town's small business group and helped plan the annual arts festival. My bond with Patrick grew beyond friendship, though we took it slow, valuing our independence. My friends included Eleanor and Michael, who visited often, and a growing circle of locals. I hadn't spoken to my parents or Brian since the funeral. Sometimes I got a Christmas card with just their printed names. I sent back the same, keeping a thin connection but guarding my heart. The cottage, once Grandma's refuge, became my sanctuary and proof of my success. From sleeping in my car, I now owned a debt-free home, ran a thriving business, and built a life rich with connections. I'd done what Grandma Margaret knew I could, created my own shelter, inside and out. But my peace was about to crack. It started with an email from Brian on a random Tuesday. Seeing his name after 5 years made my coffee turn bitter. The subject: touching base. Dear Diana, it read, fake warmth dripping. It's been too long. I saw your design company website, impressive. Mom and Dad said they haven't heard from you and are worried. Hope you're well. Let's catch up soon. Brian. I reread it, stunned. No mention of ignoring me when I was homeless, just a breezy touching base, like we'd just drifted apart. I showed Patrick the email at lunch. Sounds like he wants something, he said, handing back my phone. Nobody reaches out after 5 years just to chat. I nodded, suspicious. Why now? It's odd timing. You replying? He asked. I paused. Not yet. I want to see what's behind this sudden interest. I didn't wait long for answers. 3 days later, my parents' number flashed on my phone. After 5 years of silence, it shocked me so much I answered without thinking. Diana, darling. My mom said, her voice falsely cheerful. It's so good to hear you. Mom, I said cautiously. This is a surprise. We've been thinking of you, she said. Brian mentioned he emailed you and got no reply. We were worried. I've been busy, I said. My business keeps me on my toes. We saw your website, she said. So impressive, honey. Your dad and I are so proud of what you've built. Her praise rang empty after years of their criticism and abandonment. Before I could reply, she went on. We feel awful about past misunderstandings. Family matters, and we want to reconnect. Can we visit soon? Misunderstandings. I said, my voice sharp. You mean when you turned me away while I was homeless? A pause. Then softer, she said, we all messed up, Diana. We were struggling too. Let's move forward and rebuild. Her words sounded rehearsed, like she'd practiced this. I said I'd think about a visit but gave no dates, ending the call quickly. That evening, Brian called. Against my instincts, I picked up. Hey sis, he said, overly chipper. Mom said you talked. Great, we're reconnecting. What's this about, Brian? I asked bluntly. Why the sudden family love after 5 years? He laughed, a bit forced. Can't I just want to see my sister? But honestly, things have been rough. Over 20 minutes, Brian spilled the truth. He'd made bad investments, losing his savings and racking up debt. Our dad was forced into early retirement after a bank investigation found issues in his work. No charges, but his reputation was shot. Mom's back problems keep her from full nursing shifts, Brian said. We've downsized a lot. My condo's gone, and Mom and Dad sold their house. They're in a tiny apartment now. I'm sorry, I said, meaning it despite our past. That sounds tough. Yeah, family sticks together in hard times, right? He said, missing the irony. We thought we could visit next weekend, see your town, check out Grandma's place, reconnect. I agreed to a short Saturday lunch, making it clear they wouldn't stay overnight. After hanging up, I called Patrick. They're coming Saturday, I said. Brian says they're in financial trouble. Need me there? Patrick asked, offering support. I said yes, already dreading the reunion. They arrived at noon on Saturday. My dad looked worn, his once strong presence faded. My mom hugged me with teary eyes, while Brian lingered, eyeing the cottage curiously. "You've transformed this place," my mom said during a quick tour. "It's so much nicer than when your grandmother had it." "Grandma kept it plenty nice," I said evenly. "I just updated it to keep her style." "Must have cost a lot," my dad said, eyeing the new kitchen appliances. "Your little design business must be thriving." "Elevation Designs is doing great," Patrick said smoothly. "Diana's got clients in 3 states now." My dad's eyes narrowed at Patrick, surprised I had support. "And you are?" "Patrick Lewis. I run the town bookstore and met Diana when she moved here." Lunch was awkward. My parents and Brian mixed compliments about the house with hints of their struggles. Mom mentioned their cramped apartment 3 times. Brian complained the job market was tough despite his skills. As they got ready to leave, Brian asked to use the bathroom. He was gone a while, and when he came back, I saw his phone in his hand. "Great reception here," Brian said casually. "This cottage has solid bones. Smart investment." After they left, Patrick helped me clean. "That was tense," he said, loading the dishwasher. "Did you see Brian snapping photos of every room?" I nodded, my stomach churning. "And Dad asking about property values. Mom saying there's too much space for one person." "They're up to something," Patrick said, voicing our shared fear. "Watch your back, Diana." The next week, my family called daily. Mom asked for lunch recipes. Dad had questions about the heating system. Brian wanted to know if I had Grandma's deed. Each call felt like they were probing for weaknesses. Their second visit, 2 weeks later, revealed their plan. In the garden, Dad got to the point. "Diana, we've been thinking. This house has 3 bedrooms and you're alone. We're cramped in our apartment. It makes sense for us to move in. A family home should hold a family." I stared, stunned. "This is my home," I said. "Grandma left it to me." "She'd want it to help us all," Mom cut in. "She wouldn't want us struggling while you have all this space." "She left it to me because I'd cherish it," I said, anger flaring. "And because I was the only one who valued it." "Intentions aside," Dad said, brushing me off, "we're family. We help each other. Brian can take the garage room. And your mom and I will take the master." "That's my office," I said, shocked. "I run my business there." "You can move your computer to the dining room," Mom said, like it was simple. It'd use the space better. "No," I said firmly. "I'm sorry for your troubles, but you're not moving in." The talk spiraled. Dad pushed harder, Mom guilt-tripped and made snide remarks, while Brian stayed quiet, typing on his phone. After they left, I called my lawyer, who handled Grandma's will. I explained everything and asked him to check my ownership papers. "It's all yours," he confirmed. "They have no legal claim." Still, on Patrick's advice, I installed security cameras at the entrances. I sensed this wasn't over. 3 weeks later, I went to a design conference in Boston to network and learn. Patrick offered to check on the cottage, but his bookstore kept him busy, limiting him to drive-bys. The conference lasted 3 days. On the second night, while I mingled at a reception, Mrs. Jenkins texted, "Thought you were gone until tomorrow. Lights on in your house, people inside. You okay?" My heart pounded as I called her. "I'm in Boston," I said. "No one should be there." "Oh dear," she said, worried. "Should I call the police?" "Let me check my cameras first," I said, trying to stay calm. "I'll call back." With shaky hands, I opened my security app. The footage showed Dad's car in the driveway and 3 figures unloading boxes. I watched, stunned, as Dad forced the back door lock, letting Mom and Brian inside. I called Patrick, who was closing the bookstore. "They're breaking into my house," I said, voice trembling. "They're moving in while I'm away." "I'm heading there now," he said. "Call the police?" "Not yet," I said, reeling from the betrayal. "I'll try calling them first." I dialed Dad's phone, watching him check the screen on camera and decline. Mom and Brian ignored my calls too. Finally, I tried the cottage's landline. After several rings, Brian answered. "Hello, Wilson residence," he said, like he lived there. "Brian, what are you doing in my house?" I demanded. A pause, then a sigh. "Diana, we were going to call tomorrow. We're just settling in." "Settling in? You broke in." That's trespassing. Don't be so dramatic, Brian said coldly. This is a family home. We're family. You don't need all this space alone. I heard Dad in the background, and Brian muffled the phone. I caught Dad saying, "Tell her we'll talk when she's back. It's decided." "Get out now," I said, barely containing my rage. "I'm calling the police if you're not gone in 30 minutes. Brian's tone turned sharp. "That's a bad move, Diana. We have nowhere else. Calling the cops on family is harsh. Besides, Mom and Dad have the real connection to this house, not you." "It's my house," I said. "Grandma left it to me." "A technicality," he scoffed. "We've already talked to a lawyer about challenging the will. Grandma was old, not fully competent when she wrote it. We've got a solid case." His threat chilled me. I knew they had no legal standing, but a court fight scared me. I hung up and booked a flight home for the next morning, skipping the conference's last day. Patrick met me at the airport, his face serious. "They're still there," he said. "I checked this morning." "Your dad answered, said it's a family matter and to butt out." "Did you call the police?" I asked as we drove to the cottage. "That's your call," he said. "I spoke to your lawyer. He says their will challenge is baseless. Grandma had regular mental health checks and was fully competent when she updated her will." At the cottage, I was stunned. Mom's pillows were on the porch swing. Dad's golf clubs leaned by the door. They'd moved in, claiming my home in my absence. I took a deep breath and unlocked the door. Inside, it was worse. My living room was rearranged. Their boxes were piled in corners. Family photos I'd removed years ago sat on the mantel, replacing mine. Mom came out of the kitchen, surprised. "Diana, we thought you'd be back tomorrow." "Obviously," I said icily. "Where's Dad?" "In the master bedroom, sorting his clothes." Her casual mention of my room fueled my anger. I found Dad hanging suits in my closet, my clothes shoved aside. Brian was in my office above the garage, my design gear pushed into a corner for his bed. I gathered them in the living room, Patrick at my side. "You need to leave," I said firmly. "Diana, be reasonable," Dad said in his old commanding tone. "You've got this big house alone while we're struggling. Your own choices caused that," I said. "It doesn't change that I own this house." "You don't even have a real family," Mom snapped, her words biting. "No husband, no kids, just you and your little business. We need this more." "That's not how ownership works," Patrick said. Dad glared at him. "This isn't your business. It's a family matter." "Patrick's been more family than you," I shot back. "He didn't abandon me when I was homeless." "That's old news," Brian said, waving it off. "We're here now, ready to be family again." "Only because you're broke and want my house," I said. "This isn't about family." "We'll take this house," Dad said, dropping the act. "One way or another. We've talked to a lawyer about our options." "You have no options," I said. "The house is legally mine." "For now," he said smugly. "We have proof Grandma wasn't mentally sound. As her direct descendants, we have a strong claim." I knew it was a bluff, but I'd had enough. Without a word, I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. "What are you doing?" Mom gasped, eyes wide. "I'm reporting trespassers in my home," I said calmly. "We're not trespassers. We're family." Mom shrieked. "Family doesn't break in." I shot back as the dispatcher picked up. I gave my address, explaining that people entered my home without permission and wouldn't leave. Dad lunged for my phone, but Patrick stepped in. "Don't make it worse," he warned. The 15-minute wait for the police was tense and quiet. When 2 officers arrived, I showed them my ID with the cottage's address and the deed. "They broke in while I was away," I said. "They damaged the back door lock and won't leave." Dad claimed it was a family dispute, not a police issue, but the officers were firm. "If you're not a legal resident and the homeowner wants you out, you leave," the older officer said. "Or you'll be arrested for trespassing." "She's my daughter," Dad argued. "That doesn't give you rights to her property," the officer replied. "You have 30 minutes to grab your essentials. Arrange for the rest later." As they packed under police watch, Mom approached, tears streaming. "How could you do this to your parents?" I held her gaze. "How could you abandon your daughter when she was homeless?" I gave the police the security footage of their break-in. They advised me on getting a restraining order. My lawyer filed it the next day, and within a week, a temporary order kept my family away from my property. Watching the police escort them out, I felt a mix of emotions. Pain from their betrayal, anger at their entitlement, but mostly validation. For the first time, I stood firm against their manipulation and abuse. That night, with new locks installed, I sat with Patrick on Grandma's porch swing. "You did the right thing," he said, arm around me. "I know," I said, staring at the stars. "It just shouldn't have come to this." The legal fallout lasted months. The restraining order became permanent when texts from Brian's phone showed their plan to move in while I was gone and claim emotional duress if I fought back. Their will challenge was debunked when my lawyer showed Grandma's medical records, proving her mental clarity. Dad and Brian got probation and community service for the break-in, still insisting they did nothing wrong, that family property should be shared. Mom, though, showed regret. 3 weeks after the hearing, I got her handwritten letter. Unlike their usual defensive tone, she sounded sincere. "I don't expect forgiveness," she wrote. "I see now how we failed you, not just recently but always. Your father and Brian are still angry, but I know we were wrong to turn you away." Her words stirred mixed feelings. Part of me wanted to trust her regret, but I stayed cautious of manipulation. After thinking it over, I sent a short, polite reply, acknowledging her apology but not rushing to reconcile. Trust so deeply broken couldn't be fixed fast. The ordeal left wounds I needed help to heal. I started therapy with a family trauma specialist and joined a support group for toxic family dynamics. Hearing others' stories showed me I wasn't alone, and that boundaries were vital for recovery. "Family isn't blood," my therapist said often. "It's love, respect, and support." That hit home as I thought of Patrick, my rock, Eleanor, who saved me at my lowest, and my town's neighbors and business owners who embraced me without judgment. My bond with Patrick grew stronger through this mess. His steady support showed me what true partnership is. On the 1-year anniversary of the break-in, he proposed in Grandma's garden, now blooming with perennials I planted for her. The evening sky glowed with hues of amber and lavender as Patrick and I sat on the porch of Grandma Margaret's cottage, the air heavy with the sweet scent of blooming honeysuckle. It was a moment of calm, a stark contrast to the chaos of the past year when my family had turned my world upside down. Patrick's hand found mine, his touch steady and warm, grounding me in the present. He turned to me, his eyes catching the last rays of sunlight, and said, "You deserve a family that values you." His voice carried a quiet conviction, like a vow etched in stone. From his pocket, he drew a simple, elegant ring, a slender band of white gold adorned with a single emerald, its deep green sparkling like the promise of new beginnings. "I'd be honored to build that family with you." My heart surged with a mix of joy and the faint ache of old wounds. Just a year ago, my parents and brother Brian had stormed into this very cottage, demanding I sell it to fund their financial woes. "You're being selfish, keeping this place when we're struggling," Dad had barked, his words slicing through the legacy Grandma had left me. Brian had nodded along, his silence louder than agreement, while Mom's weak protests faded into the background. I'd stood firm, clutching the key Grandma had pressed into my hand before she passed, her final gift symbolizing her unwavering belief in me. That night, I'd chosen to protect my inheritance and my self-worth over their demands. Patrick had been my rock through it all, helping me patch the cottage's sagging roof and repaint its weathered walls, transforming it from a battleground into a sanctuary. Accepting his proposal felt like a natural step forward, a commitment to a future rooted in love, not obligation. 6 months later, we exchanged vows in a quiet garden ceremony behind the cottage, where Grandma's rose bushes bloomed in vibrant defiance of time. The morning was soft, with a gentle breeze carrying the hum of bees and the chirp of sparrows, as if nature itself was celebrating. I wore a flowing ivory dress with delicate lace sleeves, a nod to Grandma's vintage taste, its simplicity mirroring the purity of the moment. Eleanor, my college friend who'd become my confidant through every tear and triumph, stood as my maid of honor. She adjusted my veil with a teary smile, whispering, "You've earned this happiness." Michael, Patrick's kind-hearted brother who'd spent weekends helping us restore the cottage, stood by his side, his grin as wide as the summer sky. I made the deliberate choice not to invite my parents or Brian. It wasn't an act of spite, but a boundary to preserve the joy of the day. After months of soul-searching, I'd learned that family isn't owed loyalty if it comes at the cost of your peace. The absence of their drama allowed the day to shine, filled with laughter, heartfelt toasts, and the warmth of our chosen family. Patrick's parents embraced me like their own, his mom pulling me into a hug and saying, "You're our daughter now." Friends from my graphic design business, Elevation Designs, mingled with neighbors who'd lent tools or shared coffee during our renovations. Under a canopy of blooming wisteria, Patrick and I vowed to build a life of mutual respect and unwavering support. As we sealed our promises with a kiss, the applause from our loved ones felt like a chorus of affirmation, a reminder that family is forged through actions, not just blood. Life after the wedding settled into a comforting rhythm, like the steady ticking of Grandma's old clock in the living room. Mornings began with coffee on the porch, watching the world awaken in soft pastels. Patrick worked remotely as a software engineer, his office in the attic a cozy nook of clicking keyboards and glowing screens. I poured my energy into Elevation Designs, which had grown from a scrappy college side hustle into a thriving business with clients ranging from local cafes to national brands. The cottage, with its creaky floors and sun-dappled walls, became our haven, a place where we could dream without fear of judgment. But beneath this newfound stability, a deeper purpose stirred within me. The pain of my family's betrayal hadn't faded entirely. It had evolved into a drive to help others facing similar rejections. The idea took root during late-night talks with Patrick over bowls of pasta and glasses of wine. I'd been volunteering at local shelters, sharing my story with young adults who'd been cast out by their families for daring to follow their own paths. Their stories echoed mine. Disowned for choosing art over accounting, for loving who they loved, or for simply wanting more than the roles assigned to them. What if we could offer them a place to start over? Patrick mused one evening, his eyes bright with possibility. The garage, a dusty relic filled with old tools and forgotten furniture, could be transformed into a proper living space. Pair that with mentorship through my business, and we could give someone a real shot at independence. That vision birthed the Margaret's Haven Foundation, named in honor of Grandma, whose faith in me had been my lifeline. We invested our savings into renovating the garage, fresh paint and warm creams, a compact kitchenette with a cheerful blue backsplash, and cozy furnishings that invited rest. I reached out to community organizations, securing partnerships for funding and volunteers. The foundation's mission was simple but profound: provide temporary housing and career mentorship to young adults rejected by their families, giving them the tools to write their own success stories. At the launch event, held in the cottage's garden under twinkling string lights, I stood before a small crowd of donors, volunteers, and curious locals. A reporter from the town paper leaned forward, her pen poised. "Everyone needs a safe place to land," I said, my voice steady with conviction, "and a chance to build a future free from the weight of rejection." The launch was modest but vibrant. Folding tables groaned under trays of homemade cookies and lemonade, while a hand-painted banner fluttered in the breeze. Donors shared ideas for expanding the program, and volunteers swapped stories of their own struggles with family expectations. The energy was electric, a tangible hope that rippled through the crowd. I felt Grandma's spirit in every handshake, every smile, a confirmation that her legacy was living on, not just in the cottage but in the lives we'd touch. Our first recipient was Jamie, a 22-year-old graphic design student, whose story hit close to home. Disowned by her parents for switching her major from business to art, she'd been bouncing between friends' couches, her portfolio untouched for months. Her application to the foundation was raw, her words spilling out like a plea. "I just need a space to create without being told I'm a failure." When we met, her eyes held the same mix of defiance and exhaustion I'd once seen in my own reflection. Touring the garage apartment together, she ran her fingers along the freshly painted walls, her voice barely a whisper. "This is real." I handed her the keys with a smile. "It's yours for 6 months. Make it your own." Beyond housing, I offered Jamie an internship at Elevation Designs. We started with the basics: tutorials on design software, mock client projects, and long chats over tea about finding confidence in your craft. Jamie's talent was undeniable, her designs bursting with color and emotion that no business degree could replicate. Watching her present her first project to a client, her voice steady and her portfolio gleaming, was like watching my own journey unfold. She reminded me of the girl who'd once sketched logos on napkins in college, dreaming of a life where her creativity wasn't a liability. Jamie's progress fueled the foundation's momentum. She landed freelance gigs, built a portfolio that caught the eye of local galleries, and even reconnected with a supportive cousin who'd been estranged by her parents' drama. On her last day in the apartment, she wrapped me in a hug, her voice thick with emotion. "You didn't just give me a place to stay, you gave me a reason to keep going." Her success paved the way for others. Marcus, a 20-year-old aspiring chef disowned for his identity, moved in next, turning the cottage's kitchen into a laboratory of spices and warmth. Then came Lila, 23, who'd fled a household that dismissed her ambitions as unrealistic. Through our mentorship program, she secured a job in nonprofit administration, her eyes lighting up as she realized she could help others the way we'd helped her. 5 years after that rainy night when my family left me with nothing but grandma's key and a heart full of hurt, I'd built something stronger than I'd ever imagined. The cottage hummed with life, foundation events in the garden, Patrick's laughter filling the living room, and my business thriving in the sunroom office. Our marriage deepened through shared dreams and quiet moments, weekend hikes through rolling hills, impromptu dance parties in the kitchen, and late-night talks about the future. We adopted a scruffy rescue dog named Daisy, who became the foundation's unofficial greeter, her wagging tail welcoming every newcomer. Through distant relatives and old neighbors, I heard fragments of my family's unraveling. Dad remained unyielding, calling me selfish and unforgiving. At gatherings he still attended alone. His refusal to reflect stung less with time, replaced by a quiet sadness for his rigidity. Brian, after a string of financial missteps, failed investments and mounting debts, moved out of state, starting over in a small apartment with a low-paying job. Whispers suggested he carried guilt for his role in our fallout, but no apology ever reached me. Mom's story was the most bittersweet. She left Dad, moving into a modest condo and seeking therapy, according to a cousin's email. "She talks about you with regret," it read, like she's finally seeing the cost of her silence. I left the door to reconciliation slightly ajar. Not wide open, but enough for genuine effort. Any future bond would require respect for my worth, built on actions, not fleeting guilt or convenience. For now, I poured my energy into the family I'd chosen: Patrick, Eleanor, Michael, and the growing community at the foundation. On tranquil evenings, Patrick and I would retreat to Grandma's garden, sitting on a wooden swing he'd crafted from reclaimed timber. The fireflies blinked like tiny stars, and the scent of roses wrapped us in nostalgia. I'd reflect on my journey, from a homeless 25-year-old crashing on friends' couches to a homeowner with a thriving business, from a rejected daughter, labeled ungrateful, to a community pillar featured in local papers for my advocacy. The lesson was clear. Family isn't owed by birth, it's earned through love, respect, and shared values. Blood can bind, but it can also bruise. Chosen family heals, lifting you higher than you ever thought possible. At a recent foundation event, I shared my story with a group of newcomers, standing in the cottage's garden under a canopy of stars. "No family is better than one that harms you," I said, my voice carrying the weight of experience. Building a chosen family, through friendships, mentors, or communities that see your worth, can be more rewarding than clinging to toxic ties. The group nodded, some sharing their own tales. A young woman who'd cut contact with a controlling parent to pursue her music. A man who'd found sisterhood in a book club after his family rejected his career change. Their stories wove a tapestry of resilience, reminding me that our struggles, while painful, connect us in profound ways. The cottage became more than a house. It was proof of my right to exist, to dream, to set boundaries. By defending it against my family's greed, I defended my own value, emerging not just as a survivor, but as a builder of hope. The foundation grew steadily. We secured funding for a second property, hired a small staff, and launched online workshops on career skills and self-advocacy. Success stories multiplied, graduates launching businesses, finding stable homes, and even volunteering with us to mentor others. Challenges came too. Funding shortages forced tough choices. Some beneficiaries struggled to break old patterns, reminding us that healing isn't linear. Through it all, Patrick remained my partner in every sense, brainstorming solutions over late-night coffee. "We're a team," he'd say, squeezing my hand. Our life wasn't flawless, disagreements over budgets or schedules flared, but it was honest, built on mutual respect. Looking back, the betrayal that once broke me became the foundation of my strength. It taught me to distinguish true love from conditional loyalty, to cultivate communities of support where rejection once stood. The cottage stands as a testament not just to my journey but to the dozens who've passed through its doors, emerging empowered to write their own stories. Have you ever set boundaries with family members who took advantage of you? Perhaps by refusing to fund their endless demands or stepping away from their criticism. Or have you built a chosen family when blood ties faltered, finding strength in friends, colleagues, or communities who truly value you? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. Your story could light the way for someone else. If my journey struck a chord, please like and subscribe to hear more stories of finding strength in tough family dynamics. Share this video with someone who needs a spark of hope or a reminder of their resilience. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Always remember, the family we choose, through shared values, unwavering support, and genuine care, can be far more precious than the one we're born into.